Hello, my name is Brandy Hofer, your host and founder of Color Me Happy, a community podcast and book, all of which I started in my in-home studio whilst in the throes of motherhood. I am an artist, author, educator, and mother to 3 beautiful boys. We live and create together in our in-home studio that is tucked away in the quiet Canadian prairies. Our podcast and community was built to empower and inspire. We chat about everything from motherhood, the art world, business, and health in the most honest and authentic way. It's totally unedited and unfiltered. If you love what we do here, become a part of our free community, Color Me Happy. We have grown the community to support our members with features and interviews. Our link is in the notes. Thank you for being here. I sure do appreciate your time. Welcome to Color Me Happy podcast. My name is Brandy Hofer, your host. Thank you so much for being here. I sure do appreciate your time. Today we have author Tasha Hilderman on. She talks about her journey through being picked up by an agent and the whole process of creating her children's book, Metis Like Me. And it's a really interesting process, but what I really loved about this conversation was the conversation, right? What I really loved about this conversation is we got into the depths of becoming a parent and how you really hold on to your dreams and then slowly execute them through time, through the evolution of the seasons of your life, and how you can see your life through your child's eyes. And I think for people wanting to pursue their passions or creativity, those moments that you have with your children spark so much inspiration, and it's a really quite magical, romantic thing that we have the opportunity to have in this life, and it's probably one of the most beautiful, challenging times in our lives. And so we have a really good conversation about that in particular, and it makes me think about all of the things that I did as still am a creative mother. They're 4 and 7 and 9 now, so very much still in the throes of it, just not in that baby stage. Thank goodness I get to sleep most nights now, which is really good. But it's so crazy what you get through, even when you're so exhausted and running on very little sleep, and what you can come up with. And I think it's like holding on to yourself and your identity, and it shows you how much you want it and how much you need it, especially at that challenging time in your life. I talked about it a ton in my book. I actually wrote my book through the birth of I think I started right after the birth of my 3rd child, and it was such an authentic, raw write, and the process, and I just feel like I told my truth, and I was processing the grief and loss of my mother and becoming a mother all at the same time, and losing parents and what that's like, and being a creative and trying to help others through these stages of their lives and empowering them to see their everyday ordinary as extraordinary, and see their everyday lives with being parents, or being a family member, or being a good child to your parent, or and motivating you to hold on to the pieces of life that matter to you most. And I see that with Tasha and her journey of Metis Like Me. It's telling the story of her life and how she felt, and now she's empowering others through her passion and her creativity, and it has this huge social impact, and I can't wait for her to feel that ripple of the effect of years of her work that went into this book. So you can catch her reading live this weekend at the Timber Cafe and at Home Hardware if you are local, and you can pick up her book Metis Like Me anywhere where books are sold. So that's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart in the States, and Target. She's done so well. I'm so proud of her. And her and her partner Jeff have been very supportive of myself and my own author journey. I self-published, and Jeff self-published his book, and they hosted my reading there when my book came out, and they have just been so amazing with their time and generosity with their expertise on navigating the world of publishing, and I really appreciate them, and I'm happy to support Tasha, even though she probably doesn't need my support. She's doing really well, but I'm happy to give what I can when I can. So I think if you have kids, or even if you don't, it's a beautiful book that celebrates community and culture, and so pick it up. And thanks for being here, my friend. Be sure to, we've updated our brandinghofer.ca. We have lots of new classes and education. We have a sale on currently for 15% off. One of our classes is going back into the Vault Portrait class, our most popular viral class. So check that out and get the original while you still can. Even our IM, our new collection that is showing at Alt House in Saskatoon, is available for that 15% off, which I was like, oh, should I? But it's more important to me that people are able to collect and have my artwork in their home than me being an art snob. So one outweighed the other. And I just love to see my collectors to be able to invest in a piece of artwork. So check that out right now. It's on for 1 week and 1 week only. And that discount does not happen often, obviously, on original artwork especially. So keep it real. Oh my gosh, no. Okay, welcome, Tasha. So glad to have you here. And you've been on the podcast before. I kind of forget what we talked about.
I think it was even before this book got announced. I was like, oh, in November.
You were just picked up.
I think yes. And I think we just talked about Lloydminster Business
and your story. Yeah, so we didn't even talk about your book endeavors?
No.
Okay, perfect. I was like, let me make sure we don't do a double podcast.
Yes. Is it going to be exactly the same as last time?
Yeah. We just forgot because we do so many things, which happens. People are like, I love what you said in this episode. And I'm like,
did I say that?
Yeah.
When was that?
I'm like, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm so smart. No. Okay, I'm so happy to have you here. And let's start at the beginning because I know your story with publishing somewhat, and I want other creatives to know how it kind of works and what that process looks like.
Okay.
So let's start from the beginning of, you did tell your story. I do remember you told your story about your love of children's books, but let's talk about your love and your passion, and then you supplement your income with your family business, and then you decide, hey, I'm going to get, you got what are they called?
An agent.
An agent, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Start there.
All right. So I had always been interested in children's books, even as a teenager, I would be traveling and go to a bookstore and go to the children's book section, and always kind of liked the writing for children. Really loved Sesame Street, still love Sesame Street. I was just like, this would be a job to work for Sesame Street. And then it was always kind of in the back of my mind. And then one year for Christmas, my husband got me a laptop, and he was like, this is so you can start thinking about writing. And I forget what year it was, but my youngest was still young, 2 or under or something. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? And
that's so great to have someone who is and he's good like that.
Yes.
Right?
And that was a huge surprise, because normally it's just, I don't know, I was just kind of had no idea that was coming. So it was a really cool present, and then really kind of got me started, because then I had this ability to, having a baby beside me, but still have this laptop with me versus being in an office and tied to a
chipping
desk.
away at goals.
Yes. So I started kind of writing. They talk about, I can't remember where I read it, but it's talking about writing in the cracks. So just little bits and pieces that I could find anywhere to squeeze in, trying to get some creative stuff out. And at the time, most of my creative energy was going into writing my Facebook statuses, something funny, about what my kid was doing and funny hashtags and whatever. And I'm like, maybe we could stretch beyond the Facebook status and try to do something different. So I started kind of picking away at stuff. I joined a children's writing challenge group that's called 12 by 12. What's amazing about that group is the name is inspired by trying to come up with 12 drafts in 12 months. So each month, not very many people complete it. And then when I first started, I thought like, this is all about coming up with 12, but it's not. It's very much about community and, you know, sharing ideas and people giving you critiques and learning from other authors. And in this group were a bunch of published authors. So I could go to the bookstore and their books are on the shelf.
That's
I'm like,
cool.
This is an excellent resource. And then through that group, there was also lots of webinars that you just keep learning and learning and learning.
So you were motivated to do a lot of self-learning, which
Yes.
people discount.
Yeah.
Like when you're motivated and you can find resources.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of resources out there. You don't have to like quit your job
Right.
and be like, I'm going to go to get my degree in this
Yeah.
and quit everything I'm doing
Right. And I'm gonna just do this.
and that's gonna work.
Right.
Like rarely, I don't think it's a realistic, especially notion in this day and age.
Mm-hmm. And there's an author actually, Josh Funk is his name, and he said, if you have a day job and you can do this on the side, that takes away all the pressure of having it be like your sole income. It's nice to be able to just write and if you can find the time to do it, be able to just do it not to support yourself at the beginning. You don't have to quit everything and be like, now I'm a writer and now I also need to, support my whole family off this income. You can start small and then grow from there, and then maybe you do become, with picture books in particular, because it's a different market. Obviously if you became a novelist or something and you were having novel after novel, that's a larger market than picture books are.
And it's long form content.
Yes.
And Elizabeth Gilbert talks about that in Big Magic.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't quit her full-time job until after Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm like, that's really
yeah.
pushing it. Like,
Yeah.
what is your version of success?
Right.
That is like,
Yeah.
until I'm like on the top New York Times bestseller
Right.
and I sell 1 million
Right.
copies, I cannot quit.
Yeah, exactly. And she even had like a massive advance for that book too. Like she went travel, did that whole trip on the advance from that book, and still was like, no, I'm doing this.
This haven't made it yet.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I just kind of started from there. Did a lot of learning, and you just keep building. And even when I first started in the group, the founder of the group, Julie Headland, was like, from when you decide you want to do it, it often takes 2 years for you to learn enough about the industry. Because even say with children's picture books, it's a very specific set of requirements versus a novel. You might have like thousands of pages of difference from a size of a novel, whereas picture books, the goal is 500 words, which seems like easy, but then at the same time, you're limited to 500 words. And then you're trying to only write what can't be shown in the picture. So you're really writing half the book. You're writing what you can't show in the imagery, and then you're leaving space for the illustrator to write that other half of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a very challenging pursuit in that way, because you could have really beautiful language and they're like, let's cut that back. We want to show that instead. So that's a bit of a challenge. And then so there's just a lot of learning about that kind of thing. And and then eventually the big goal is trying to get an agent. And so you would submit your writing to different agents, because all of the major publishers, you have to have an agent in order for them to even look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't send an unsolicited manuscript, you need an agent. So the first goal is getting an agent. And so eventually I did get my agent. The funny story with her is I had sent stuff to her and she's like, I'm kind of interested in your writing, I kind of like this, but I don't think this is necessarily it for me, but keep showing me some other stuff. And then like a year later, she was like, I can't stop thinking about this one that you sent me. And then offered to represent me. And that book still, we haven't sold, we keep sending it out to people, and everybody's interested in it, but they're like, it's not quite right for me, so we're still searching for the right person. And that's the crazy thing. You get your agent for this book that was now like however many years ago, and then if it could be 15 or 20 years from now it might get published. You don't know. So that was kind of the intro to that. And then once you get an agent, then they can start sending out manuscripts to different publishers. And with this book, Metis Like Me, what happened with it is it was an idea. And this is kind of a crazy story, and I don't know if we talked about this before
No,
last
not
time.
at all. I have not personally heard this story at
Okay.
all. Yeah.
So I always had this idea of Metis Like Me in my head. And the Metis symbol is the infinity symbol, as you know. And I just liked the idea of representing different children or different interests, and they can all mean Métis. So somebody might be a fisherman, somebody might not be a fisherman. Somebody might know how to jig, somebody might not know how to jig, but they're all still Métis. Somebody might have dark skin, somebody might have light skin, somebody might have red hair, somebody might have dark hair. So it was kind of like, are you Métis like me? I like this. Well, I'm Métis, but I like this. And this was kind of in the back of my mind for a while. And there was a lady my sister and I used to see. This is going into woo territory. We just met her like on a Facebook group or something, and she did card readings, like oracle card readings. And she would always give me things about my writing and things about my writing, and then one day she pulled a card and it had the infinity symbol.
No way.
And she's like, and she gave me a message about writing, and I'm like, I know exactly what you're saying, I got it. So I was like, okay, that is the book that I need to write. And then we, with the publisher, Tundra of Metis Like Me, we had submitted them a different manuscript, and they said they were really interested in kind of like person of color stories, or like indigenous, black stories, stories of underrepresented peoples. And I was like, well, I've had this idea about this Métis story, I'm Métis, and here's something I was thinking about. It wasn't even written at that point. And the editor was like, yes, there's a definite lack of Métis stories in the canon, and that would be something we would be looking for. And so I'm like, okay, I'll get to work on that. And then I did, and that's how the whole thing started.
Yeah, hold it up. Let's see. It's gorgeous. And it has, so the Métis
Yeah, feel
fever.
the cover.
No way. Oh, that is gorgeous. We covered this in our art academy, and one of the students made me a piece, and then I ended up including it in artwork. So I'm like, I wish I had still had it actually. But yeah, and then her mom came and we did it with the class, and I love that they made it like, that's what you can't do when you self-publish is big fancy
Right.
covers. Yeah, that's gorgeous. I haven't seen it yet, so everyone will have to like, oh, my hair. It's join in with me in that. But I did check it out on Amazon, but I want to get it from you on Saturday at Home Hardware for your live opening. Okay, so once you get, they're like, I like your story. It's probably not like, oh, there's your book. Like, what happens after that?
No. So even the initial story, the initial manuscript almost kind of had more of a refrain. So it was like, I am not Métis like you, but I like going fishing too, or whatever. And then they didn't want it to be too, so once they accept your manuscript, they're like, yes, like let's offer you a contract and we're gonna do this. After that, tons and tons and tons and tons of edits and little words, and should we italicize this or not? Should we have a comma there or not? Like, it's a very fine tooth and review. And then in the meantime, trying to pick an illustrator. And so I didn't realize most of the information I had heard was you will have no input on your illustrator. They'll just pick one for you and that'll be it.
That'd be hard.
And I was like, ooh. But then my editor was very much like, we want to make sure that the illustrations are right for this, list after list, and we would look at people. We were trying to use an Indigenous illustrator. We couldn't find one that the art that they did matched the story very well. So then eventually we found Risa, and Risa's from Vancouver, and really resonated with the story because she's not Indigenous, but she has a mixed background as well. So that kind of resonated with her a lot. So then we picked Risa, and then Risa would sometimes do illustrations. There was one in the middle where there was like daffodils, and I was like, I like the daffodils, or it was tulips or something. But I would like it better if it was a native plant, because then it would feel more, and sending her lots of photos of our region so she could see, because she's from Vancouver, see what the grasslands look like. Yeah. I went to Saskatoon, what do the bushes look like how do they grow? And so that was, like, it's literal years of talking. Like, it was supposed to publish last year, it got bumped to this year. And yeah, going back over, sometimes you have to let go of parts that you really liked because they say I want it in art, or it just doesn't work with the flow of the book. When you write it, definitely with picture books, one thing they talk about often is page turns. So when there's a section of word, I'll just hold this up a little bit here too. When there's a section, you want it to be a natural spot where you would then turn the page, or it's something that's going to entice you to turn the page and see what's next. So there's a lot of figuring out the pagination that way, versus if you were doing a chapter book, it really, you would still want the break to be at a good spot where the chapter is, but it doesn't necessarily matter which side of the page that it's on, and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot that goes into it. And then even with my editor, she then has to take it to the editorial board, and they all have to say, we like where this is going, or we don't like this part, or we think it should be more like this. So it's a very complex process, and a lot goes into it before it actually comes out.
And a lot of people and different opinions.
Yes.
And then navigating that. I bet you a lot of people, even though they're like, I want to, like, first step, agent, yes.
Yeah.
And then publisher, woohoo!
Yeah.
And then all that comes
Yes.
after that is just like those, I don't think people think about it at all,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to get critiqued as a creative
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, let me make those changes
Yeah.
for you
Mm-hmm.
and accommodate, right? Because
Mhm.
you don't want to lose the opportunity, but you don't want to lose yourself in the process.
Exactly. And there's certain things that you could be like, yeah, okay, we can change that wording, or there's certain things you have to push back a little bit. I'm trying to think of one thing in this one, I can't remember what it was. But definitely things where they're like, we were thinking it should be this. And I'm like, I was kind of really thinking it should be this way, and here's why. And
I
then
kindly disagree.
yes. So sometimes you'll win those, sometimes you won't. But it's been very, very interesting and exciting and neat to see like the other side of the business. And yeah, and then to finally have this thing out in the world still doesn't feel real because it's such a long process to get there.
Yeah, you're almost numb by the
Yes.
point where it
Yeah.
comes out and you're like, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah, it's here. Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's like when actors have to promote their movies. They're
Yes.
like, yeah, that movie I made 3 years ago.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, cool.
Mhm.
And they have to do this big tour about
Yeah.
it. Same with authors.
Yeah.
So timing wise, I think it's interesting. So it did take longer, but because this process is so challenging, do you think that maybe you are at the right season of your life as a woman, where you can navigate the waters of being like, no, actually, this
Yes.
is how I envisioned it, and like, would you have been that same way when you were in your like early 30s or 20s? Like, I know, like I wasn't as good of a decision maker or sticking to my values or morals and values at that point in my life.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I had a friend from university that didn't end up pursuing having a family. She didn't want to have kids, and because she felt like you lose yourself when you have kids, and then your life becomes for your kids. And so when I first had my kids, she was like, well, are you still doing anything that you used to love? Like, are you acting, or are you, making art, or are you writing? And I was like, well, I'm trying to, but also I'm in this phase of my life where I have these small children, and they're only going to be small for a while. And so now, very much now that they're older, I have more time, or I also have the brain space because we can do things together but separate. Like, they could be doing stuff while I'm writing. And also having the confidence and the security, I guess, that there's a lot of rejection in this business. Like, the majority of the stuff, a lot of publishers might publish 10 books a year. They get thousands and thousands and thousands of manuscripts, then they just shut them all down. And then even when you do get something, the reward could be years away. Like, I have a book that's coming out in 2027 that was very much based on my littlest kid. He's gonna be like a teenager when that one comes out, you know?
I wrote this for you.
Yeah, it's for you. When you were do you still want to read this, teenage boy?
I'll read it to his own kids.
Yeah,
That would be
exactly.
cool.
And in these groups that I'm in, I do see a lot of people being like, oh, I got a rejection. And I'm like, the road to being published is paved in rejection. Like, you have to get rejection to eventually get to the point where you get accepted. But that's really hard when you're younger to accept that. And now at this phase in my life, I think they would have really bruised me before, hearing like, oh, it's a no from this, because it's constantly, it's a no, it's a no, it's a pass, it's a pass, it's a pass, it's a pass. And then on the rare blue moon you get, it's a yes for this book or whatever. And I'm definitely able to handle that better and also understand it more. Whereas, you know, you could take things personally really easily, and like, am I not a good writer?
You still do a little
You still
bit,
do,
right?
you still
Or
do.
like when someone makes a weird comment, someone you're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, you understand where they're coming from as a professional and as a business
Yes.
person, which would come with owning and running your own business, right?
Yeah. So it's definitely, you know, I guess with age comes wisdom. So
Yeah,
you're able to manage some of that stuff better or understand it more, where you know, and now being in this phase, I'm better or more able to dedicate the time that I want to be able to it. And yeah, hopefully see where it goes and have a whole new chapter of writing life.
Yeah. Yeah, and being less reactive too, right? I feel like with young kids, like you are clinging on to, and I know this because I'm just starting to see the light, but then now they're in activities, so now it's like a new, different busy, which I actually hate it. Organized sports can just die. Anyway, the clinging to like the creative is like, I need it. It's like my thing, and it's nobody else's, right? Like, and I think it's a really great magical place to be like, this is my passion, and now I'm at home, but I'm like kind of stuck here, you know? I think it's a really good, it's a hard and challenging season of life, but a really good time to dive into your passions. And then as you evolved and you grew with your children, your time does free up in a different way, and then you're, you know, like you said, like you're a stronger person because you're a parent, and you have to negotiate all fucking day with your kids. And I'm a master negotiator, and manipulator. Actually. That's what you do all day. You do it all day. And no's don't feel like, so you're like, whatever, I have to go do this now. Like I have to keep living my life, and I'm looking forward to, I know I'll miss like the shark costume days and stuff, and like Teddy, but like Teddy always wants to be with me like all the time, like whatever I'm doing is the most interesting, fun thing. So I try to be active a lot, but like once they're, you know, your youngest is as young as my oldest, so I'm like maybe less than a decade behind you, but about, and when they don't care about you and people are like, I don't know what to do with, I'm like, I know what I'm going to do with my time. I'm very excited and I'm ready for it. Not that I'm not enjoying this.
But it is hard. Like my kids, my oldest and my youngest both were quite anxious, still are quite anxious. And like I could not be in the room. If I was in the laundry room, it was like panic, like where are you? So literally on me or with me all the time, just constantly. And sometimes it's fatiguing.
For sure it is.
And at the same time, there's certain things with your kids that you do, I can't remember what I read once, that was like, you live your childhood a second time through your kids. What they get excited about or what they see, or like it was just my youngest's birthday this past weekend, and he very much wanted a safe, like a combination that he could punch in. He got this thing, he opened it, he closed it.
I hope you found like a child.
It came from grandma.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not like a real, like you could still pick it up and run away with it.
It's not a gun safe?
No. But drugged this thing around everywhere, took it and put it beside the bed when he went to bed at night, got up in the, like, and so just to see somebody that's so in love with something, and then you can get sparks of creativity from that you would never think of, you know.
So many parents bounce off of, like, so many children books come from children. Or I created, you were in my art collection that was from Gus. We made 44 pieces together. Like, it was, I miss it, like, I'm going to start crying. I miss it so much. Like, there was something so And it is a fun time, like you get to go sledding again and like stuff that you're like, you find yourself like rushing down the hill and you're like,
yeah, exactly.
Like,
and you have to be excited about what they're excited about. Like my middle son is 13 now, and so some of the stuff that my 10-year-old is into, he's like, oh, like it's lame, or he's not into it anymore. And I was like, dude, think about being a parent. I'm like, when you guys were little, it was all construction sites. Like we used to just drive around and look for backhoes and dump trucks and excavators and bobcats. And when we were driving on a highway, I would be like, look, there's an look, there's this. And I said, still now, I have to say, oh, they don't want to look at those anymore.
No, and you know the names of them. Had to learn the names of the machines.
I know. And I'm like, and I had to be excited about it. Or like I saw something once when a guy was like, when a child is small and they see a cow, they're like, cow, and they freak out. They're like, oh my God, it's a cow. And for them in that moment, we're like, yeah, oh my gosh, it's a cow. Look at him, look at his spots, look at his colors. And then eventually we stop getting excited when we see cows. Why? Why aren't we always excited when we see a cow? And so you get this other vision and this other view of life. And if you can absorb that and take that into you too, that's an exciting thing to go through. So lots of inspiration and lots of second chances through your kids.
Right. And I think that there is a misconception with women like who are like, I'm not having children because I'll have to give up.
Yes.
But the thing is, and what I found, and I was one of those women, I was like, I'm not having children. Like this house was not built, clearly open staircase right there. We had to carpet it temporarily for babies. And everyone who came by, they're like, your children are going to fall through this. And no one has.
Yeah.
So we all made it through alive. But like, there is a misconception that you do, like it is challenging, it is hard, I'm not saying it's not, but there is a rediscovery of yourself.
Yes.
And it is really empowering. And through like grief and loss of like other things in your life and through parenthood, I think we become better versions of ourselves. Like I remember like going grocery shopping and be like, whoa, done for the day.
Yeah.
Like, I'm beat.
Yeah.
Superstore really took it out of me. And now you're like, that's just like 1 in 25 things that I have to do today. And you just become this resilient, strong, no fuss person who can, you're like, if I did that, I can do anything I want.
Yeah.
And I don't think you get that same thing.
Right.
And that utilization of time when you're not a parent.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a need and a necessity. And it just comes about, like you just become and you have to. And so the growth that you experience is like exponential because, when a baby is born, a mother is also born. You become a different person, and the way you see things, and you're walking around the rest of your life with your heart on the outside of your body, the things that you feel are like amplified in all directions. So the stress is amplified, but the love is amplified, and the curiosity and the introspection and everything. Like you just it's like getting a new set of glasses and being able to see.
I always described it as like living in black and white and then finally living in color, which surprised me because I wasn't going for that in life, but it just happened, right? Yeah. And I love that you said, and compassion for others and community and other people, because you want to see the world as a better place. I think Meryl Streep like quotes that. She's like, more women need to be in power because they want to see the world, and I'm sure men do too, and everyone in between, but they want, when you have children, you want the world to be a better place for your children and your grandchildren to live in. So you start thinking about that, which would really be like putting out, the best parts of yourself and your opinions and your influence into the world, which you can do as a creative, and with your book, like how many people is that going to impact, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting because there's some comments and stuff online already from people being like, this book was for me, because it's very much about saying, even if you don't know your culture, it's not too late to learn now. And even if you're not a member of a specific culture, you can still share in learning about them and enjoying their food and hearing their stories. And so it's very, kind of encapsulates that wide open growth and acceptance and mission that we want for ourselves and our kids.
It's part of that. I was like, I really want to know what I am, and then I'm like 11 things.
Yeah.
Like, how do you pick from that?
I know. And,
Like I told Randy when we were doing our mural, I was like, I'm like a stray cat from Europe. It's like,
you're everything and all.
yeah, and so it's just, and then, finding identity in that, and you're like, well, I guess I'll just create my own,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But, like, at the same time, there's a romanticism about, like, having a culture and belonging to something as well, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think with Métis and the way it works, it is so great that you showed that it's inclusive and but very diverse, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because there's just some questions that people have. I guess a lot of people don't understand. We didn't learn it very much in school. Like, I don't remember learning about being Métis at all. Now my kids are learning about it a lot, and they're experiencing lots of different parts of the culture, and they've had jiggers come to the school, and they've had Métis speakers, and so it's really kind of coming up to be recognized and educated on, shared through education, as much as First Nations were. But Canada did a shitty job with all Indigenous peoples for a long time, in terms of education and in terms of, relationships, like the whole,
we don't need to dive further into it,
everything. But now, it's coming to a point where it's more people are being aware of what it means and being interested in wanting to learn. And
not only that, but embracing it and being proud of it.
Yes, definitely.
Which I think there's been a huge shift, especially from growing up here in our generations, and when we went to school, like, it's very different culture. And even in the past 3 years, I remember your niece was here, Chloe, jumping on the trampoline, and they were talking about, they asked me why we have Orange Shirt Day, and I was like, okay, well, let me try to do this. Like, there was like 10 kids on the trampoline, I'm like, let me try to, and then I was like, well, Chloe, you're Métis, and she's like, what?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what? And I was like, yeah, you are, so this is, like, part of your heritage. And so I was trying to explain it to them in the best way possible. And the schools are doing a good job now, and like, we go to the Heart of Treaty 6 circle, and lots of the elders are visiting the schools and educating. So it's very good, because people should know the stories. Even if you're not Indigenous, you should know your country's history and what happened, and you can practice compassion and inclusivity moving forward and try to make a change in, like, we can never right those wrongs, but you can be a part of, reconciliation, I guess, is the blanketed term for what is happening, right?
Yeah, you bet. And I think there's so much opportunity for that, and it's a great thing that we are seeing such a shift from when we were kids to what's being, why do I keep wanting to say educated? What's being shown and taught and celebrated now.
Yeah, there's a lot of celebration, and I actually was very shocked that Lloydminster, when at Lakeland, that was the very first powwow.
Yeah,
like, that was shocking.
Very shocking. And yeah, and even just learning a lot about the native regions around us and how they didn't feel welcome in our city, and now our city making great strides to, remedy that and change that for the future.
And we did that great project last summer together. So Home Hardware was a big supporter of, and that whole, like, that is part of breaking that separation line. This is part of breaking that separation line, and just in a really positive way. And we called it, like, and Randy said we talked years ago, and it's still not out because Kim didn't edit it, but he might one day. I was like, can I just have the footage?
Yeah.
He's like, I'll find it. It's like, great. But Randy talked about, and I remember our phone conversation about building bridges and then meeting in the middle. And that's really what it's about. It's like, I understand you and you understand me, and we can practice compassion moving forward.
Yes.
And not separation or hate. And hopefully those invisible barriers start to fade. And well, even though they're invisible, can they fade?
Yeah.
Anyway, my double brain, you're like, are you thinking about what you're saying?
Yeah.
And it's a pretty cool thing. And I think there's some wonderful community members that have been working toward this for a really long time, and we're starting to see the physical changes and feeling the shifts. So can you tell everyone where they can come? You're going to read.
Yes.
I was just really super easy that
Yes.
way. Read in front of people.
Yeah.
You're going to do a reading at Home Hardware on Saturday at 10?
Yes, Saturday, April 27th at 10. I'll hold this up again. And there are books at Home Hardware in Lloydminster. If you're not from Lloydminster, you can get them anywhere books are sold. So Amazon, Chapters, Barnes & Noble, in the States at Walmart and Target.
That's crazy. Good for you.
I know, isn't that crazy? I'm like,
pretty mind-blowing. Yeah, great.
Look, I should just hold this. I should just do this.
Are you're going to sign them to you on Saturday?
Yes, so they can be personalized and signed if you would like. And we're going to have some. I'm really excited. I haven't seen them yet, but we're going to have some very cool cookies.
Oh, impressive.
And just some other refreshments. I hope
that?
so.
Oh,
yes.
okay. That'd be great. Okay, I'm excited. I am putting it in my calendar. So today is Friday, and so that's tomorrow morning at Home Hardware at 10 in the Timber Cafe?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Is the greenhouse open yet?
Next week, but we have a little bit of stuff trickling in already.
You can go out there.
Yes, you can.
The sun is shining. Well, it might be shining. Probably.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a day like today.
Yes.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Yes,
and thanks for coming by.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
If you're looking for some time for yourself to relax, release, and unwind, Oasis has the perfect space for you. They offer yoga and spin classes of all levels. Whether you are a beginner or advanced student, Oasis thrives on accommodating all aspects of the practice. Let their serene environment and gracious staff help you in your journey of peace, healing, and strength. Sign up online at www.oasishotyogastudio.com or by downloading the Oasis Hot Yoga Studio app. Feel like yourself. You deserve it.
Thank you so much to our supporters and our community partners. We could not do this podcast and outreach and projects in our community without you. That is Red Bicycle Communications. They are so amazing. They uplift in so many ways in our community. Jill started her business and she talks about it on the podcast. So Jill Kelly, check out that first episode. She's come on a few times and empowered others along the way. So she's grown her own business and her vision, and she was even featured in the Toronto Star, I believe. Is that the right newspaper? Hopefully. It was very cool. It was a very cool business feature because she was like, I'm going to try this out in my community and we'll see if it works and if it doesn't. And obviously it's been like probably more than a decade since, and they're doing really well. And they have founded the Women in Business Awards. So I'm very proud to be a partner with them. We have Nouveau Laser and Aesthetic Center. I love them so much. They make me feel good in my own skin. It's one of my biggest touch points and what I'm most self-conscious about. And I recently have been starting to get some of my tattoos removed that I got when I was 16 and 19. So obviously I didn't think those through, but it doesn't hurt, which was very cool and very surprising. So they are the only people locally who do tattoo removal, and of course, face treatments and a whole bunch of another like laser hair removal and an array of, you can do injections and a whole bunch of stuff. So check Nuvo out. We also have BioClean Disaster Services. They're so wonderful, and their mission is, I love their mission statements and their values. It's to uplift community through women and children. So what happened, and I remember talking to them about this when we initially partnered, is what happens when you empower females is they live a better life, and if they have children, then they raise better children, and that is the way that to empower community and growth and I guess like challenge the poverty cycle in a way. So so I love talking to them about that, and in our initial conversations of when they became a partner, and they have helped us along the way with mural washing and a lot of different projects around the city. So I love them so much, and they do a wonderful job because, I mean, it's for usually, like, if your basement got a flood for some strange reason, like, that's your most vulnerable time in your life, and they're there for you to help you through and ease any situation or help you in any way, because that is like, when stuff like that happens, it's so, like, it's so frustrating. So they support people in that journey. And then we have Oasis and Hot Yoga Spin Studio, safe space for you to rest your mind and gain more energy and come back to yourself again. So I love it there. It's always been, it's a beautiful space. They have gorgeous plants, and it'll just refresh you and revitalize you. We're so lucky to have them in our community. Thank you so much for being here, and we will chat with you soon, my friends.